In a world where travel often symbolizes adventure and exploration, there are still countries where American citizens face substantial obstacles. Despite the U.S. global influence, some nations have either imposed restrictions or exhibit outright hostility toward American tourists. Here, we take a closer look at 10 countries where traveling as an American in 2024 can be particularly challenging. Let's get started. Number 10. Cuba. Travel restrictions for Americans visiting Cuba remain stringent due to the enduring U.S. restrictions. Even though diplomatic relations have warmed slightly, the restrictions continues to limit casual tourism. Americans can only visit Cuba if they qualify under one of 12 authorized categories, including family visits, journalistic activities, or educational purposes. Navigating the Cuban visa process adds more layers of complexity. With no Cuban embassy or consulate in the U.S., Americans must apply through third countries, often adding time, expense, and logistical headaches to their travel plans. Constantly shifting regulations also create confusion, making Cuba a difficult destination for Americans despite its proximity to the U.S. Number 9. Saudi Arabia. Since 2019, Saudi Arabia has opened its doors to international tourists with a new visa regime, but challenges persist, particularly for American women. Women under 25 are required to be accompanied by a male family member, complicating solo travel or trips with friends. Besides, Saudi Arabia's strict Islamic laws continue to govern dress, behavior, and social interactions, making it essential for travelers to adapt and respect these norms. While Saudi Arabia offers unforgettable experiences, including UNESCO World Heritage Sites, navigating its conservative social landscape can be daunting. Visitors must adhere to local customs and laws that are deeply rooted in Islamic traditions, which can be an eye-opening yet challenging experience for Americans. Number 8. Iran. Iran remains an interesting yet challenging destination for American travelers. Thanks to strained diplomatic relations dating back to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, travel to Iran for U.S. citizens is tightly regulated, requiring all visits to be part of an organized tour with a government-approved guide. This restriction severely limits freedom and spontaneity for travelers, as every aspect of their visit is prearranged. In addition, the visa application process for Iran is notoriously complex and time-consuming. Travelers must obtain a visa authorization code through an Iranian travel agency before applying for the visa, and approval often requires meticulous documentation and can take weeks. These bureaucratic hurdles make Iran an alluring yet difficult destination for American tourists. Number 7. Bhutan. Known for its breathtaking Himalayan landscapes, Bhutan offers a unique and structured travel experience, but at a high cost. American travelers must pay up to $250 per day as part of Bhutan's high-value, low-impact tourism policy, which covers accommodations, meals, and other services, while also contributing to the country's environmental conservation efforts. Independent travel to Bhutan is impossible, as visas can only be obtained through licensed Bhutanese tour operators or their international partners. This guarantees a well-organized visit, but limits spontaneity and makes the destination accessible only to those willing to comply with Bhutan's strict tourism guidelines. Despite the expense, Bhutan offers an incredible experience in a country deeply committed to preserving its traditions. Number 6. Russia. Russia, a nation of many cultural traditions and landscapes, has become a more complicated destination for American travelers due to political tensions. The visa process for Russia is particularly cumbersome, requiring detailed applications that include extensive personal information, professional affiliations, and educational history. Even with these efforts, visa approval is never guaranteed. Additionally, the U.S. Department of State has issued high-level travel advisories for Russia, warning of the potential for harassment, arbitrary law enforcement, and terrorism. These warnings are especially relevant in light of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which has further strained U.S.-Russia relations. American travelers to Russia must prepare for the possibility of close scrutiny and, in some cases, hostile treatment. Number 5. Syria. This country, once celebrated for its ancient civilizations and treasures based on their culture, has been ravaged by civil war since 2011. Today, the country is one of the most dangerous destinations for American travelers. The U.S. Department of State strongly advises against all travel to Syria due to ongoing armed conflict, terrorism, and the high risk of kidnapping, especially for Westerners. Even if a traveler manages to secure a visa through a third country, the logistical and safety concerns are immense. The civil war has devastated much of Syria's infrastructure, and terrorist groups operate freely across the country. For American tourists, Syria is a perilous destination where the risks far outweigh any potential rewards. Number 4. North Korea. North Korea is one of the most inaccessible countries for American travelers, thanks to a strict travel ban imposed by the U.S. government. Enacted during the Trump administration, the ban prohibits all travel to North Korea except under very specific circumstances, such as journalism or humanitarian work. And even then, travelers must obtain a special validation passport, which is rarely granted. Before the ban, North Korea allowed highly controlled tours for tourists, who were always accompanied by government-approved guides. However, the risk of arrest and detention in North Korea remains high, as the regime has a history of using foreign nationals, including Americans, as political pawns. The tragic case of Otto Warmbier, an American student who was detained and died after being released in a coma, serves as a forbidding reminder of the dangers involved in visiting this reclusive nation. Number 3. Venezuela. Once a famous place for tourists, Venezuela has become a dangerous and unpredictable place for American travelers due to the country's ongoing political and economic crisis. The U.S. Department of State warns against all travel to Venezuela, citing widespread violent crime, including armed robbery, kidnapping, and homicide, as well as the potential for arbitrary detention of American citizens. With no Venezuelan embassy or consulate in the U.S., securing a visa requires navigating a cumbersome process through third countries. Additionally, the collapse of essential services and infrastructure, including healthcare and transportation, makes it difficult to ensure basic safety for travelers. Venezuela's severe instability has transformed it from a sought-after destination to a highly precarious one. Number 2. Libya. Libya, once home to a thriving tourism industry, has become one of the most dangerous places in the world for American travelers due to its ongoing civil war. Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has been engulfed in violent conflict, with various factions vying for control. This has led to widespread lawlessness, armed clashes, and a heightened risk of terrorism. For American tourists, the threat of kidnapping and armed robbery is exceptionally high, and obtaining a visa is nearly impossible without a specific business purpose. The U.S. Department of State has issued a strong travel advisory against all travel to Libya, emphasizing the dangers of terrorism, civil unrest, and the lack of central authority. Even for essential business travelers, Libya remains a perilous destination. Number 1. Yemen. A country devastated by ongoing conflict since 2014. Yemen's civil war has created an environment of extreme instability, making it one of the most dangerous places on the planet for American travelers. The U.S. Department of State strongly advises against all travel to Yemen due to the risks of armed conflict, terrorism, and kidnapping. Terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and ISIS, have established a presence in Yemen, further exacerbating the dangers. Kidnapping is a prevalent threat, with Americans often targeted for ransom or political leverage. The risks of travel in Yemen are immense, making it a country that American tourists should avoid at all costs. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and until next time.